One thing black people do not do is suffer from depression. Don't try us. First of all, we don't have time to be depressed. Bills got to be paid, kids got to be raised, and jobs got to be done. We ain't got no time to be depressed. Now, the first thing I said was completely ridiculous. Of course black people get depressed. But you know what we do? We float that narrative around that community that we don't get depressed. We don't have time to be depressed. But guess what? We don't take into account if you are super sad and you can't stop crying after you're having a baby and it's existed for long periods of time. Guess what? Postpartum depression. You get sad during the holidays. You get sad during the winter time. Can't seem to shake this funk. And then all of a sudden during the summertime you might be happy. During the spring or something like that you might be happy. Seasonal depression. You're sad for long periods of time. Can't explain why. You're down. Want to hurt yourself. Want to kill yourself. Don't want to talk about it. And then all of a sudden you're up. And you got all this energy to do all these kind of things. You're talking faster. Things are not making sense to other people, but all of a sudden you had this spiritual awakening. Bipolar depression. There are so many times in our culture that we like to say, oh, we don't have time to be depressed, or ain't nobody depressed, or that's some white people stuff. And guess what? It's not only white people stuff. Everybody has a brain, and some people's brain don't function the way that they would want it to optimally all the time. So yes, black people actually do get depressed. Now, you might say, well, even though I was depressed, guess what I still had to do? I still had to go to work. And you know what? You probably did still go to work. But that was functional depression. Depression looks different in black people than it does in any other culture. Because guess what we do? We still got to go to work. We still got to take care of our kids. We don't have time to take mental breaks. And we don't have time to talk about it. Because guess what? Talking about it is not going to help. That's how we think about the way that we feel about ourselves. But just because it's not diagnosed doesn't mean you don't have it. So about 10% of African Americans have been known to have depression. And that's between the ages 12 to 17. And that's from the National Institute of Health. So just because it's undiagnosed doesn't mean that it's not there. I'm willing to bet my last pair of underwear that there are way more people that are depressed and that they just don't talk about it. A lot of times the reason why they don't talk about it is because nobody wants to hear about it. Especially coming from the baby boomer generations of parents, because those are the parents that I come from, the baby boomers. They're like, nobody has time to talk about your depression. Guess what? You depressed, you better go depress them dishes. How many times do we see the memes where they say, oh, you depressed? Go ahead and go depress them dishes. And then, oh, I don't want to hear about it. Nobody has time to sit around and talk about your feelings because things has to get done. And that's true. Things do have to get done. But guess what? You might not be able to go talk to your family about it. You might not be able to talk to your friends about it. You are talking to other people who are raised by the baby boomer generation. And what do? We believe everything our parents told us. So if they tell us you don't have time to be depressed, you have things to do, some of that stuff is true, but not the not having time to be depressed. That's why people hurt themselves, because they think that they have no other options. But I'm here to tell you that there are other options. Studies show that just 12 sessions of psychotherapy, that depression rates were lowered in everybody, not only black people, but a lot of black people don't go and partake in psychotherapy because we don't have the money, we don't have the time, or we just don't know that there's somewhere you can go. Or, you know what the biggest thing is? We don't want to talk to somebody who can't understand our struggle. That's a real thing. Some of the reasons that we are depressed is because we are heavily exposed to racial trauma. You can't go nowhere these days. You go to the doctors and guess what? They're looking at you funny because you're in here and you know what? You're not the right race to be in this doctor's office. Or I don't want to treat you. Or you don't have the proper insurance because you're not the right race. And because, we don't often have things handed to us, we have to go and go get it. And sometimes those good insurance comes with those good jobs. And it's not that we can't find good jobs. It's just that it's harder for us to find good jobs. We are discriminated against because guess what? I have a name like Rashonda. Immediately when you look at a job application, somebody's going to look and see Rashonda. And guess what? If I'm racist, I'm not hiring you because your name is Rashonda, because your name screams black. So if you can't get a job because of your skin complexion, then you can't get good insurance because of your skin complexion. And guess what? A lot of times those therapeutic offices only want to take TRICARE, Blue Cross, Humana, the best insurances. And guess what? Sometimes we just don't have those. So we decide we can't pursue anything because our insurance is not going to pay for it. And we don't have time to be paying for stuff like that out of pocket. How, you might ask? Well, if you don't have TRICARE, Blue Cross, the insurances that people love to see because they might pay a little bit quicker than Medicaid, or they might pay a little bit more, then you're going to have to lean on your Medicaid. And there are clinics And there are people who do this for fun because they want to see other people get better, but you have to tap into those. So the best thing to do is to go on Psychology Today. You go on Psychology Today, you don't even have to talk to anybody. You can go and look at bios. You can go and say, I don't like the way she looks. I don't like her nose. You can go and be as selective as you want to find your therapist, and you can find somebody who does take your insurance. How about that? All I'm saying is that there's no point in suffering in silence. No point at all. There's also resources where you can take parenting classes, because parenting is stressful, especially parenting teenagers is stressful. I have an almost teen, and I can tell you right now, I'm almost stressed out. So parenting is stressful. You can go find somebody to give you parenting classes. You can find grief groups if you're sad. You can find groups to where people are going through drug addiction. If you're a child or a spouse or a family member of an addict, there's Al-Anon, there's Nar-Anon, there's groups that can actually help you get through your struggles. Studies show that group therapy is proven to work because people like to be in the shit with people who have things going on just like them so that they don't feel alone. All I'm saying is there are things that you can do to help out with your depression, because guess what? Black people do get depressed.